in life when the weight of everything we've been through sits so heavy on our shoulders that we wonder if we will ever be able to breathe again. The disappointments, the betrayals, the nights spent crying in silence because we're too afraid or too ashamed to let anyone else see our pain. The heartbreaks that left us questioning our worth, the rejections that made us feel like we would never be enough. The moments where we gave our all and still ended up empty. But I came to tell you today that even in your brokenness, there is still a purpose. Even in your pain, there is still a promise. Even in your tears, there is still a testimony. Because healing is not about erasing the past, but about learning how to let it fuel your future. Healing is not about pretending you never got hurt, but about deciding that the hurt will not have the final say. Healing is when you take everything that was meant to destroy you and use it as the very thing that strengthens you. There are some wounds that time alone cannot heal. You can change your hair, your friends, your job, your location, but if you don't allow yourself to heal from the inside out, you will keep running in circles, repeating the same patterns, falling for the same traps, and wondering why the peace you crave seems so far away. Emotional healing requires honesty. It requires courage. It requires you to sit with your pain, to confront the parts of yourself you would rather hide, and to surrender the burden to the one who is strong enough to carry it. You see, we have been taught how to be strong for everybody else, but who teaches us how to be strong for ourselves? We've learned how to push through, how to smile when we're hurting, how to keep going even when we feel like we have nothing left to give. But real strength is not in pretending that everything is fine. Real strength is in allowing yourself to feel, to acknowledge what broke you, and to trust that healing is still possible. There are things in your past that tried to kill your spirit, things that made you question whether you would ever truly be happy again. But I want you to understand that the pain you experienced was not designed to destroy you. It was designed to develop you. It was designed to teach you resilience, to reveal to you who you really are when everything else is stripped away. It was designed to push you closer to the one who has been waiting for you to surrender, not in defeat, but in faith. And faith is what will carry you through the seasons where nothing makes sense. Faith is what will remind you that even though you may feel alone, you are never abandoned. Faith is what will hold you when your heart is breaking and whisper, "This is not how your story ends." Because spiritual growth begins when you stop allowing the wounds of your past to define your future. Spiritual growth begins when you recognize that even in your most broken moments, God has not forgotten you. But let's be real for a second. Healing is messy. It is not always a straight path. Some days you will feel strong and confident, ready to take on the world. Other days you may feel like you are right back where you started. But do not be discouraged by the process. Do not let the setbacks convince you that you are not growing, because every single step, no matter how small, is still progress. Every tear you cry, every prayer you whisper, every time you choose to get back up after falling, that is healing in motion. The enemy wants you to believe that because you were broken, you are unworthy. But the truth is, it is in the broken places that the light shines the brightest. It is in the wounds that you try to hide that your greatest testimony will be born. Because healing is not just for you, it is for those who are watching you, those who need to see what it looks like to go through the fire and come out refined. There is somebody waiting for you to heal because your story will give them permission to believe in their own healing. So do not rush the process. Do not compare your journey to someone else's. Do not let the enemy convince you that because you are still struggling, you are not growing. Sometimes growth looks like crying but still choosing to believe. Sometimes growth looks like falling but deciding to get back up. Sometimes growth looks like walking away from what is familiar because you know it no longer serves you. And let me tell you something, growth will cost you. It will cost you your comfort. It will cost you your excuses. It will cost you the relationships that were built on brokenness. It will cost you the need to control every outcome. But what you gain in return is so much greater. You gain peace. You gain clarity. You gain wisdom. You gain a relationship with God that is not based on religion, but on true intimacy. There will be moments where you want to go back. Moments where you miss the things that once made you feel safe, even if they were toxic. Moments where you second guess if healing is worth it because the process feels too painful. But I want you to remember this. You are not fighting for where you've been. You are fighting for where you are going. And where you are going requires a healed version of you. Where you are going requires a version of you that is no longer bound by the past. Where you are going requires you to believe that you are worthy of more. So today I need you to make a decision. A decision to stop waiting for permission to heal. A decision to stop believing that you have to have it all together before you start moving forward. A decision to stop letting the pain of yesterday dictate the joy of tomorrow. Because healing does not happen in the future, it happens in the now. Healing is in your willingness to say, I may not be where I want to be, but I will no longer stay where I was. Healing is in your ability to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Healing is in your faith that even when you cannot see the way, God is still leading you. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not what they did to you. You are not the mistakes you made. You are not the failures that tried to define you. You are chosen. You are loved. You are whole even when you feel broken. You are growing even when you feel stuck. You are healing even when you still feel the scars. So rise up. Take back your joy. Take back your power. Take back your faith, because your healing is not just for you. It is for every person who will look at your life and realize that they too can be free. There comes a point in life when we must decide whether we will continue carrying the weight of our wounds or finally release them and step into healing. But healing is not automatic. It does not happen simply because time passes. It does not come just because we distract ourselves with work, relationships, or even spiritual routines. True healing requires honesty, the kind of honesty that forces you to sit with your pain, look it in the face, and admit that it has shaped parts of you in ways you may not even realize. Too often we are taught to be strong in ways that encourage suppression rather than healing. We learn how to smile when we are hurting. We master the art of keeping busy so we do not have to deal with what is really going on inside of us. We tell ourselves that we have moved on, that we are over it, that what happened does not affect us anymore, but deep down the wounds are still there. And if we are not careful, we will find ourselves bleeding on people who never even cut us. Being honest about your pain does not mean dwelling on the past. It does not mean reliving every heartbreak or betrayal. It means acknowledging that something hurt you. It means admitting that certain experiences shaped your self-worth, your trust, and your ability to love. It means recognizing that there are still parts of you that need restoration, and that honesty is not a sign of weakness. It is the first step toward freedom. There are many people walking around carrying wounds they have never confronted. They have become so accustomed to pain that they mistake it for normalcy. They build walls around their hearts to avoid being hurt again, but those same walls keep out love, joy, and connection. They wear masks, pretending to be okay, but behind closed doors, they struggle with insecurities, self-doubt, and resentment. Healing requires that you take off the mask. It requires that you stop pretending and start processing. Processing pain is not always easy. It may require you to revisit moments you would rather forget. It may stir up emotions you have worked hard to suppress. It may even reveal truths about yourself that are uncomfortable to face. But until you confront the root of your wounds, you will continue to see the symptoms manifest in different areas of your life. Maybe it is in how you struggle to trust others. Maybe it is in how you sabotage good things because deep down you do not believe you deserve them. Maybe it is in the way you keep seeking validation from sources that will never satisfy your soul. The truth is, what you do not deal with will deal with you. The pain you ignore will show up in your relationships, your habits, your mindset, and even your spiritual life. But when you get honest about where you are, you give yourself permission to heal. You create space for God to step in and do what only He can do. You position yourself for growth, for peace, for wholeness. It is not enough to say, I want to heal. You have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to have the hard conversations with yourself and with God. You have to be willing to feel, to grieve, to release. You have to be willing to acknowledge that healing is not about blaming others or justifying your pain. It is about reclaiming your power, because when you own your truth, you take back the authority that pain tried to steal from you. Growth is never comfortable. It stretches you, challenges you, and pushes you into places you never thought you would go. But the truth is, real transformation requires discomfort. It requires you to step out of what is familiar, even when familiarity feels safe. It requires you to let go of the things that no longer serve you, even when those things have become part of your identity. Growth does not happen in comfort zones. It happens in the moments when you are forced to confront yourself, when you have to make hard choices, when you have to trust that something greater is on the other side of your struggle. There is a reason why so many people remain stuck in the same cycles year after year. It is not because they do not want to grow. It is because growth demands a price that many are unwilling to pay. It will cost you relationships that are no longer aligned with where you are going. It will cost you the version of yourself that learned how to survive instead of thrive. It will cost you the excuses that once made you feel better about staying the same. And sometimes it will cost you the validation of those who benefited from your brokenness. One of the hardest things about growth is realizing that not everyone will understand it. There will be people who question why you are changing. There will be people who try to pull you back into old habits, old mindsets, and old patterns. There will be moments when you feel isolated because the places you used to fit into no longer feel right, but that is the price of growth. You cannot step into the next version of yourself while clinging to what was. You cannot heal and hold on to what broke you at the same time. You have to decide that becoming who you were created to be is more important than holding on to who you used to be. Growth is also a process. It does not happen overnight. It is not a one-time decision. It is a series of choices made daily to keep moving forward even when it is hard. Some days you will feel strong, and other days you will question whether you are making any progress at all. But do not let the difficulty of the process make you doubt the power of the outcome. Every time you choose to do the inner work, every time you choose healing over comfort, every time you choose to believe in yourself even when you feel unworthy, you are growing. There will be moments when you want to go back, when the pain of transformation feels overwhelming and you start to miss the familiarity of what was. But remember this: comfort does not mean healthy. Just because something feels familiar does not mean it is where you are meant to stay. The discomfort of growth is temporary, but the regret of staying stuck lasts much longer. You must be willing to embrace the stretching, the pruning, and the refining. It is in the stretching that you become stronger. It is in the pruning that what is unnecessary is removed so that you can thrive. It is in the refining that the best version of you emerges. The discomfort you feel is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that you are evolving. So do not fear the process. Do not run from the pain of transformation. Do not settle for a life that is beneath what you were created for just because the journey to more requires sacrifice. You are being shaped, molded, and prepared for something greater, and though it may not feel like it now, one day you will look back and realize that everything you had to let go of, everything you had to endure, and everything you had to grow through was worth it. Faith is what sustains you when nothing else makes sense. It is the foundation that holds you up when everything around you seems to be falling apart. When life shakes you, when disappointment comes, when the pain feels unbearable, faith is what whispers, keep going. It is what reminds you that even in the moments when you cannot see the way, God is still leading you. Even when you do not understand, God is still working. Even when you feel abandoned, God is still present. Faith is not just about believing when things are good. It is easy to trust when doors are opening, when prayers are being answered, when life is moving the way you expect it. But real faith is forged in the fire. It is developed in the waiting seasons, in the storms, in the moments when everything seems to be going wrong. It is in those moments when faith is tested, when you have to make a decision. Will you trust what you see, or will you trust what God said? One of the hardest things about healing and growth is that it does not always come with immediate evidence. Sometimes you pray and things seem to get worse before they get better. Sometimes you take steps toward healing and the pain still lingers. Sometimes you do everything right and life still throws unexpected challenges your way. But faith tells you that just because you do not see it yet does not mean it is not happening. Faith reminds you that God is moving behind the scenes in ways you cannot comprehend. Faith requires surrender. It requires releasing control, letting go of the need to have all the answers, and trusting that even in uncertainty, God knows exactly what He is doing. This is where many struggle because we want clarity before we move. We want to see the full picture before we trust. But faith does not work like that. Faith is trusting when you do not have all the details. Faith is taking the step even when you do not know where the road leads. Faith is believing that even when life feels chaotic, there is still a purpose unfolding. Sometimes the greatest challenge to our faith is the waiting, the space between the promise and the fulfillment, the space between the prayer and the breakthrough. Waiting can feel like silence, like nothing is happening, like God has forgotten about you. But faith reminds you that waiting is not wasting. It is in the waiting where your strength is built. It is in the waiting where your character is refined. It is in the waiting where God prepares you for what is next. Because sometimes the delay is not denial, it is protection, it is preparation, it is God making sure that when you step into what He has for you, you are truly ready for it. When you step into what He has for you, you are truly ready for it. So you are walk within protection. It is preparation. It is preparation. It is preparation. It is preparation. Faith does not mean that fear will never show up. It does not mean that doubt will never creep in. It does not mean that you will never have moments of questioning. But faith is what allows you to feel the fear and move forward anyway. It is what gives you the strength to silence the doubt and keep believing. It is what reminds you that just because you feel uncertain does not mean you are alone. Your healing, your growth, your transformation, all of it is rooted in faith, because you cannot heal if you do not believe healing is possible. You cannot grow if you do not believe that greater is ahead. You cannot step into the next version of yourself if you do not trust that God is guiding you. Faith is the bridge between where you are and where you are going. And even when you do not see the full picture, even when it does not make sense, keep believing. Even when it gets hard, keep trusting, because faith is what will carry you through. Pain has a way of making us believe that it is pointless, that what we have endured was just an unfortunate event with no real meaning, that the heartbreak, the betrayal, the loss, the disappointment were all just things we had to survive, with nothing to gain from them. But the truth is, pain is never wasted. What you have been through is not meaningless. There is purpose even in the moments that broke you. There is something being birthed in you through the very things that tried to destroy you. It is hard to see purpose when you are in the middle of your pain. when you are crying yourself to sleep at night, when you are questioning why certain things had to happen the way they did, when you are wondering if you will ever feel whole again. But if you look back at your life, you will see that some of your greatest moments of growth came from your deepest seasons of pain. The things that stretched you, the things that made you question your strength, the things that pushed you to your limit, those were the very things that shaped you. Pain has a way of revealing things we never would have seen otherwise. It teaches us who we are, what we are capable of, and where we need healing. Sometimes it shows us the areas of our lives that we have neglected. It exposes the wounds we have ignored. It forces us to face the things we would rather suppress. Because the reality is, growth does not happen in ease. It happens in the pressing, in the stretching, in the breaking. It is in those moments when you have nothing left but God that you truly begin to understand His power. You may not see it now, but there are people who need to hear your story. There are people who need to know that healing is possible, that they are not alone, that they are not the only ones who have struggled, who have doubted, who have felt broken beyond repair. Your pain has a purpose because your testimony will give someone else permission to believe in their own breakthrough. What you are going through is not just about you. It is about those who will come after you. Those who will look at your life and see proof that God is a healer, a restorer, a redeemer. But here's the thing. You have to make a decision. You have to decide that your pain will not define you, that it will not break you, that it will not keep you stuck in a place of bitterness and regret, because pain only finds purpose when you choose to grow from it, when you choose to learn from it, when you choose to allow it to shape you rather than shatter you. You may not have had control over what happened to you, but you do have control over how you respond to it. Healing does not mean that the pain never existed. It means that it no longer has power over you. It means that what was meant to destroy you has become the very thing that strengthened you. It means that the thing you thought you would never get over has now become part of your testimony. That is why pain has a purpose, because it refines you, transforms you, and prepares you for what is ahead. You are not just going through this, you are growing through this. And one day you will look back and realize that what tried to break you was actually the very thing that built you. Healing is not a place you arrive at. It is a choice you make every single day. Too often we wait for a moment when we will wake up and feel completely free from the hurt, completely detached from the past, completely whole. But healing is not a one-time event. It is a process, a journey, a series of decisions to keep moving forward. Even when the scars still feel fresh, it happens in the small, quiet moments when you choose peace over resentment, faith over fear, and growth over comfort. There is a common misconception that healing is something that just happens over time, that if you wait long enough, the pain will fade and you will automatically be okay. But time alone does not heal. It is what you do with the time that determines your healing. You can go years without addressing your wounds and still be carrying the same burdens, and for what wise ones. And when you heal, that's when God does the real work. And that is when you can move to a new city, start a new relationship, get a new job, but if you have not dealt with the root of your pain, it will follow you wherever you go. Healing does not come from ignoring the pain or pretending it does not exist. It comes from making the decision to face it, to work through it, and to release it. Releasing pain is one of the hardest things to do because sometimes we do not even realize how much we have attached ourselves to it. We hold on to the memories, the anger, the disappointment, thinking that if we let go, it somehow minimizes what happened. But letting go does not mean it did not matter. It does not mean the pain was not real. It means you are choosing not to let it control you anymore. It means you are refusing to let it dictate your future. It means you are choosing freedom over bondage. Healing also requires forgiveness, not just for others, but for yourself. There are things you have been holding against yourself, things you regret, things you wish you had done differently, but you cannot grow if you are still punishing yourself for mistakes you can no longer change. You cannot move forward if you are constantly looking back. At some point, you have to release yourself from the weight of the past and trust that you are worthy of a fresh start. But let's be honest, healing is not always linear. There will be days when you feel strong and whole, and there will be days when the pain resurfaces, when the memories creep back in, when you wonder if you have really made any progress at all. But do not let those moments discourage you. Just because you still feel the scars does not mean you are not healing. Just because you have moments of struggle does not mean you are not growing. Healing is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about continuing to choose wholeness even when the process feels slow. You do not have to wait until you feel completely healed to start living. You do not have to wait until everything is perfect to move forward. Healing happens in the now, in the choices you make today, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you show up even when you do not feel ready. Stop waiting for permission to heal. Stop waiting for someone else to validate your journey. Stop waiting for the past to undo itself. The power to heal is in your hands, and the moment you decide to step into it is the moment true freedom begins. There comes a time when you have to stop waiting for life to hand you healing and start taking ownership of your journey. Healing is not something that just happens to you. It is something you decide to step into. It is not a destination where you suddenly arrive and everything is perfect. It is a daily choice, a commitment to yourself, a decision to no longer let your past dictate your future. For too long, many of us have believed that healing will come when circumstances change, when people apologize, when time does its work. But the truth is, healing begins the moment you decide that you will no longer be a prisoner to what hurts you. It is the moment you say, I may not have control over what happened to me, but I have control over how I move forward. It is refusing to let your identity be wrapped up in pain, trauma, or disappointment. Healing is not about forgetting what happened. It is not about pretending that the wounds do not exist. It is about deciding that your past will not have the final say in your life. It is about choosing wholeness even when brokenness feels more familiar. It is about standing up and saying, I deserve peace. I deserve joy. I deserve to be free. There will always be reasons to delay your healing. There will always be voices, whether from within or from others, that tell you it is not the right time, that you are not strong enough, that you have too much baggage. But healing is not about having all the answers or having everything figured out. It is about being willing to take the first step, even when you are scared. It is about trusting that wholeness is possible, even when it feels far away. The hardest part of healing is making the choice to do it, because healing requires work. It requires unlearning the patterns that have kept you stuck. It requires facing the truth about your pain instead of numbing it with distractions. It requires being honest about the things that still trigger you, the things that still make you react in ways that do not align with who you are becoming. Healing requires effort, but it is effort that leads to freedom. There is no perfect moment to begin healing. There is no magical day when you will wake up and suddenly feel ready. Healing happens in the now, in the messy and imperfect moments when you decide that you are tired of carrying the weight of what was. Stop waiting for closure that may never come. Stop waiting for validation that you do not need. Stop waiting for the past to undo itself. The only thing standing between you and healing is the decision to step into it. You do not have to have it all together to begin. You do not have to feel strong to start. Healing is not about waiting until you feel ready. It is about deciding that you are worthy of wholeness now. It is about taking one step, then another, until one day you look back and realize just how far you have come. Your healing is in your hands. No one else can do it for you. No one else can make the decision to move forward. The moment you stop waiting and start choosing to heal, everything changes. Because healing is not just about what you leave behind. It is about the life you are stepping into. And that life, the one full of peace, joy, and purpose, is waiting for you to claim it. Healing and growth are not destinations. They are journeys that require daily commitment, courage, and faith. You cannot rush the process, and you cannot avoid the work it takes to heal. But what you can do is decide that your past will not define you. You can choose to confront your pain, to embrace the discomfort of transformation, and to trust that everything you have endured has a greater purpose. The journey will not always be easy. There will be days when you feel like you are making progress and days when old wounds try to resurface. But do not mistake struggle for failure. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a step toward wholeness. You are not the person you were yesterday, and you will not be the same person tomorrow. Growth is happening even when you do not see it. Your healing is your responsibility. No one else can do the inner work for you. No one else can make the decision to let go, to forgive, to move forward. But when you choose healing, you are not just choosing to be free from the past. You are choosing to step into the fullness of the life that was always meant for you, and that life filled with peace, purpose, and power is waiting for you to claim it. So take the first step. Keep trusting, keep growing, and keep believing that greater is ahead, because the moment you decide to heal is the moment everything begins to change. Your past may have shaped you, but it does not have to define you. Your healing, your growth, and your future are in your hands.